I'm Dana. I'm the housing coordinator at United Way. I've been the housing coordinator for 2 years. I've been with United Way for 3 years. And then just my first independent living situation was, I was 19 and I was living with, moved in with 5 other girls with 1 bathroom, which was really fun. And there were holes in the walls, holes in the ceilings. It was infested with bats, but we were just like, oh, it's our own place. We just love it. So it's kind of interesting to think about when you were younger, so most of you were like 18, 19, 20, about the same age as these youth that we're going to be working with now. It's interesting to see, remembering what it was like for you. Was it a party house? Did you have 5 roommates living with you because you didn't want to be by yourself? That's the same attitude a lot of times that our youth have. But our Section 8 has very strict rules, which does not allow for that to happen, so sometimes it can get pretty tricky. I want to start off with just an introduction, and so Autumn already kind of told you a little bit, and I assume that a lot of you know a little bit about what Section 8 is. It's a housing program where you get a voucher and you can look for an apartment anywhere you would like, and you would pay 30% of whatever your income is towards the rent, and then, well, in our case, Division of Housing would pay the rest of it. But our housing vouchers are through the Division of Housing, which they are the public housing authority, and then they give United Way and Bridging the Gap the vouchers. So for a couple of reasons. So we have specific services to work with youth, so help with housing needs, so helping them find the place, and independent living, so they're not just in the Section 8 house and go for it, you're on your own now. So we're going to be going through this resource manual. First, on page 4 is the history of FUP. In 2009, that's when Bridging the Gap and United Way got the FUP vouchers. But originally, Urban Peak had the FUP vouchers, which is a homeless shelter in Denver. And they got it in 2002. It originally came from a different Section 8 program also called FUP. So FUP stands for Family Unification Program. And it was supposed to be, the original FUP, and they still have the original FUP, is for families who are at risk of losing their children due to homelessness, and they were giving these vouchers, which are just Section 8 vouchers, but they came with case management. And then in 2002, they made a grant to take some of those vouchers and turn them into this other FUP program, which also stands for Family Unification Program, which sounds kind of weird with the Youth Independent Living Voucher, but it's basically, they changed it over to serve our youth, and I'll go into detail what exactly our youth are. So that's a little bit of the history. So what is the Family Unification Program? So our program is an 18-month Section 8 housing voucher, where they pay 30% of their income towards rent. Excuse me. And we pay the rest. My throat is dry. So it's for youth who've been in the foster care system. They have to have been in the foster care system on or after their 16th birthday. So a lot of times people say, well, I was in foster care, but if it was only when you were 2, you wouldn't be eligible. It has to be on or after your 16th birthday. A lot of people also get confused with Division of Youth Corrections, which is different. So Division of Youth Corrections, it could be a paid placement, but our paid placement has to specifically be through child welfare. And they have to have been in foster care on or after 16. They also have to be between the ages of 18 to 21, so have not reached their 22nd birthday yet. So if they are approved when they're 21, but then the very next day they turn 22, that's okay, as long as they're approved before 21. And then they also have to be either homeless or at risk of losing their housing. So that's pretty broad. It could be literally on the streets homeless. It could be couch surfing, which is what we usually see. It could be living in a shelter, living in another transitional housing program. So they have to be at imminent risk of losing housing or homeless. They have to have an active service plan or case management plan. So usually we get our referrals from other partnering agencies that work with the youth, and they have a case management plan with the youth. So usually it's Chafee, but there's also other nonprofit organizations that we can work with as well. Sometimes we do have youth without case management, and then we have 3 independent living coaches at United Way that can help them find case management, but they have to have some sort of case management in this program. So that's something for you, because I think you guys are case managers. So you'll probably be the case manager and the housing person for them. They have to pass a criminal background check. The criminal background check is pretty broad. We will deny someone if they're a sex offender. If they have a felony assault in the last 2 years, they have 5 or more any felonies in the last 2 years. If they've manufactured meth at a home, they'll be denied. And if they were convicted of murder or arson in the last 10 years. So we do accept felons. It just can't be a felony assault in the last 2 years or 5 or more felonies. We do have a lot of youth who unfortunately do have felonies in this program, which makes it hard for them to lease up because, of course, the apartment complexes don't have to take it. Just because they have a Section 8 voucher doesn't mean that the apartment complex has to accept them in, because they have their own rules as well. So that's the general eligibility for what FUP looks like. They can have a child, or however many children really, that they can add to the voucher. They could have 1 adult that they can add to the voucher, but it really shouldn't be, it can't be a parent. A lot of them try to add their parents. But it can't be really a friend. We try and make it a significant other, and that's it, which could be a male or female. But just 1 adult. It is, you cannot have felony assault in the last 2 years. Can't have 5 or more felonies of any kind in the last 2 years. And then can't be convicted of methamphetamine manufacturing. Can't be a sex offender. And then murder and arson. And something else to keep in mind. This is so those are so we get our standards from HUD, who gives us the money for these Section 8 vouchers. Different housing authorities may have other rules. So if you have your own housing authority in your county, they might be more strict. So if you might get confused, like, well, that one doesn't let anybody in if they have a felony, but these are our policies. So that's the eligibility part. And so what happens is, once I get an application usually sent over by a partnering agency, so a Chafee or Shiloh Home, for example, I will look over the application to make sure everything's filled out. If it's not, then I have to send it back to you. And then I send it in for eligibility, and again, what we're gonna do to it is do a criminal background check to check those things. Checking the trails system, so we can see if they have been in foster care on or after their 16th birthday. Then we'll also know that, okay, so this is a child welfare placement, not a DYC placement, because again, they wouldn't be eligible if it's a DYC placement. We check the CBMS for like food stamps, TANF, to make sure, check something called the EIV, which we'll talk about in a little bit, to make sure they're income eligible, because they could be over income. I think the income limits are 30,000 or less, but I've never seen a youth start off at 30,000 or less, or usually way less than that. So, and then you would send the application to me you could either send it by fax, email. You could send it by mail, regular mail, whatever's easier for you. And I have my information there. On page 6, the second page of it. So once we get that, it will take about 2 weeks, up to 2 weeks, depending. Sometimes it takes a little longer, especially if the youth's child welfare is out of state. So only one person has the ability to check out of state trails. So if you know the youth has had their care out of state, so let's say California, for example, tell us what county and anything else, meaning maybe the caseworker in that county, and then we can move it along a little quicker, because it does take a little longer if the person's out of state.